You are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, everybody? Gene Berardelli, Ross Galloway here with you on a lovely Wednesday evening with a whole lot of shenanigans and buffoonery going on. What's going on, Ross?
What's going on, man? Seems like it was a slower than usual week.
What, last week? No. Maybe so far this week, but
yeah, this week so far.
This week's a little slower, but compared to last week, anything's slower. It got a little wild and woolly last week.
I mean, I want to say my favorite story of the week so far is Rosie O'Donnell self-deporting. Like, that's the one thing that's been occupying most of my brain power this week.
Well, and thank you for stealing my final thought, but whatever. I was going to, you know what? Let's do it now. Let's all take a moment of silence and thoughtful reflection for the nation of Ireland for having to deal with Rosie O'Donnell. Everyone, please bow your heads. Silence.
They're going to get what they deserve.
Well, I mean, do they really deserve? Okay, do they really deserve that?
I don't know if you saw that Trump met with the Prime Minister of Ireland, and a reporter asked, like, how can you guys take Rosie O'Donnell? He had no idea who she was. So, yeah, I blame them. They should pay attention to them.
Well, Trump was actually like, hey, good question. I'll remember you. That was the best part.
So the Democrats are the kings and queens of when they lose an election, taking their ball and going home.
They've lost their ever-loving minds. We've been talking about this for weeks now, but it's continuing on. It's not a bug. It's a feature of the Democrat Party now.
Yeah, I'm sorry I derailed you with that. It's just I thought it was a very funny thing that happened this week, and I can't stop laughing about it.
Oh, it's definitely one of the funnier moments this week. But at the same time, everything Democrats are doing lately is just funny as hell. I do have to play. Let me get this one video out of the way. That I made a short video of this, and to me, this is really the definitive statement about the Democrat Party. I gotta find the right folder I put this in. I made a short video. It's out right now on the channel. You can check it out. Let me get into the right folder for it here. I think it should be showing up relatively easily here. Let me see if I have it here somewhere. Ah, yes, here it is. This has been living in my head this week.
And then just lastly, Van, in terms of Democrats and where they go from here, this last week we did see them some people try to protest during the president's address, and then House leadership getting onto them, other Democrats calling them out. They still seem to be wandering around trying to figure this out. What's your take?
Can we ask another question? Do I have to talk about my own party? Can we talk about Ukraine or something? No. Look, man, we're screwed. I mean, we don't know. No, Democrats don't know what to do. This is a nightmare. Somebody like Donald Trump, we thought we'd at least have Hakeem Jeffries in the speaker's chair to hold him back if we didn't have Kamala in there to do the right thing. Listen, the Democratic Party is going through a massive set of internal crises. You have a party that got trapped two ways. One, defending a broken status quo that nobody likes because they thought that Donald Trump was going to make it worse. But when you're defending the status quo, you're going to lose. And then offending most people in the country, calling everybody sexist and racist and transphobic and every other name, and then saying, please follow us. That's not a good strategy, folks. Defending a broken status quo and offending most of the country turns out is not as popular as my party thought it was going to be.
Just look at, okay, so Van Jones giving the most sobering take on Democrats I've heard. But Galloway, when was the last time you saw CNN without a chyron?
Ah, good observation there.
They didn't even know what to put up in the context of this discussion.
Yeah, that's a microcosm of what is actually wrong with the current structure of the Democratic Party, right? It's not that they don't have a cast of characters. They definitely do. Some of them are even charismatic, like Van Jones. It's not that they don't get a lot of free media. They do. They have several networks, and all the legacy media gives them free airtime. It's that they don't have a message, right? They were saying like they had a messaging problem. Like The American people just weren't hearing what they had to say. No, dude, like you literally have no message. What would the Democratic Party platform look like other than just crazy platitudes that don't make sense? Right? They have no core issues. What's their issues? Would they actually list them? Open border. We're not going to lock up shoplifters. What are their issues? Trans surgeries in jails for inmates, like that at taxpayer expense. We're not going to cut government waste, fraud, and abuse. Like, I don't understand what are their issues other than everything opposite end of what Trump is trying to do.
I think their biggest problem, pal, is not a matter of what are their issues. It's what are their core values. Right now, their core values are not palatable to the electorate. So
I'm curious, Gene, what is your opinion on what are their core values even? I don't even know.
Their core values are everything that they don't want to say out loud, that they are for the inclusion of transgenderism in sports and things like that. They are for an open border. They are for supporting anti-West actions. I think that's at their core. At least that's the vocal part of the party. Maybe the Democrat Party is co-opted. I don't know. But I think when they say the quiet part out loud and expose those core values, they're summarily rejected. Van Jones is right in the sense that there's two Democrat parties right now. There is the old guard of Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and that ilk that was trying to show that they can be centrist, but really they have no core values at all, period. They just go where the money is. And then you have the new true believers of the far fringe left, the leftists out there, that are trying to impose their will, but in actuality, they represent maybe 10% of their party. But they're the most vocal ones, so you end up seeing them holding up signs saying this is not normal, or walking out during a speech in Congress, or causing disruptions in Congress, or getting into fights in committee hearings, which is another thing that we saw not only last week, but this week as well, that we can talk about. We got a lot to talk about right now, pal. We really do.
Yeah, I think that you're actually, you kind of hit the nail on the head, and I just want to put a finer point on something you just said. Those are their core values, but the they is the party leadership and the elected Democrats. That is true, that their core values are out of whack. The vast majority of Democrats who are not really paying attention to the news every day, and or even if they watch the news, they're not really digging down deep into what Doge is doing or what Trump really said during the campaign. Those people don't believe in those core values that you outlined, right? And the proof is simple. The Democratic leadership, the AOCs, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Chuck Schumers, and the DNC itself, they always take the side, like on an 80-20 issue, right? Like, should boys playing girls sports? 80-20 across America. The Democrat leadership and the party officials take the 20% side, right? So it shows like they're not only out of touch with America, which I think the Democrats as a whole is, even a lot of their rank and file membership, but they're out of touch with their own party. The ones who are supposedly leading.
I agree with that completely. More importantly, I think they're out of touch with their rank and file membership as well. I don't see a lot. I mean, I live in the People's Republic of New York, so I see a lot of crazy leftists out in the world. But when you go into flyover country and to other places, I don't think Democrats are as nutty as their leadership is. At least I hope not, anyway. But
there's one trait that they actually keep, though, in common, Gene, is although they might not agree with them on a whole host of the crazy things that the leadership pushes, the rank and file, and I hate to say this to you Democrats, because I know a lot of you listen to this show, is you have TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, right? I know it's cliche to say it, but that is fogging your memory. Lots of things that Donald Trump is for, your party was for less than 10 years ago, including Elon Musk, they were fans of him, including securing the southern border, including traditional marriage, like all these things that your party actually was for 10 years ago, all because Trump likes them now, you're against them. There's something wrong with you.
Well, let's get into this story that I want to bring up that I think reflects a lot of what we're having in this discussion about what are the core values of Democrats. Before we get into it, though, I got to do a little spiel here of saying, please like, share, subscribe to the channel wherever you're watching, whether it be on YouTube, on Rumble, on X. Shout out to our KLRN people as we are getting this live tonight. We're glad you're here with us. as we talk about sort of the latest cause, so the latest celebrity cause, if you want to call it, when it comes to the Democrat Party, and that is this Columbia University student, Mahmoud Khalil, who has been detained by the government. And depending upon who you talk to, this is either a free speech issue or this is a national security issue. I got a couple of clips here, pal, that I want to run through first. And it's going to start with, I think, my legal mind says let's start with the allegations first and why this person was picked up, why this Mahmoud Khalil was picked up from Columbia University, why he's being currently held somewhere in Louisiana. I want to start with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and his statement about the reasoning for this detention of this gentleman, Mahmoud Khalil, who I believe is here he's here as a legal resident on a green card. Let's watch this, and then I want to get your reaction, pal.
United States as a visitor, which is what a visa is, which is how this individual entered this country, as on a visitor's visa. Okay, you are here as a visitor. We can deny you that visa. We can deny you that if you tell us when you apply, hi, I'm trying to get into the United States on a student visa. I am a big supporter of Hamas, a murderous, barbaric group that kidnaps children, that rapes teenage girls, that takes hostages, that allows them to die in captivity, that returns more bodies than live hostages. If you tell us that you are in favor of a group like this, and if you tell us when you apply for your visa, and by the way, I intend to come to your country as a student and rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student, anti-Semitic activities, I intend to shut down your universities. If you told us all these things when you applied for a visa, we would deny your visa. I hope we would. If you actually end up doing that, once you're in this country on such a visa, we will revoke it. And if you end up having a green card, not citizenship, but a green card as a result of that visa while you're here in those activities, we're going to kick you out. It's as simple as that. This is not about free speech. This is about people that don't have a right to be in the United States to begin with. No one has a right to a student visa. No one has a right to a green card, by the way. So when you apply for a student visa, or any visa to enter the United States, we have a right to deny you for virtually any reason. But I think being a supporter of Hamas and coming into our universities and turning them upside down and being complicit in what are clearly crimes of vandalization, complicit in shutting down learning institutions. There are kids at these schools that can't go to class. You pay all this money to these high-priced schools that are supposed to be of great esteem, and you can't even go to class. You're afraid to go to class because these lunatics are running around with covers on their face, screaming terrifying things. If you told us that's what you intended to do when you came to America, we would have never let you in. And if you do it once you get in, we're going to revoke it and kick you out.
There you have it. I mean, that's the case laid out. It's not about the First Amendment for Secretary of State Rubio.
I think he nailed it, right? I haven't seen that clip until you just played it. And he said it better than I could say it. You're a guest here when you're on any type of visa, right? So part of that is not that first of all, you don't have full rights and benefits and privileges of American citizenship, right? You can't vote. There's a whole bunch of things you can't own a gun. There's a bunch of things you can't do here, right? You can't claim you have a Second Amendment right because you're here on a student visa. I'm not saying that we should be harsh with people on student visas and try to quelch free speech completely, but there is a difference between free speech. You write an opinion piece on something in a newspaper or a paper for your school versus you're taking over buildings on a college campus and blocking other students, American citizen students, from attending class that they paid for, right? There's a clear difference there. I would hope that most people could see that.
Absolutely. And the law actually defines who these people are. If you look at the Immigration and Nationalization Act, the INA, there is a section that discusses who are these, what they call inadmissible aliens. And just like any other litigator out there, I went to the law and I went to go do my little bit of research here. And I found the statutes that I believe that they're referring to. Let's start with 8 U.S.C. 1182. I'm not going to bore you guys with a lot of the minutia of this, but these are classes of alien ineligible for visas or admission. If we scroll down a little bit of ways, and I'm going to see if I can nail it. There it is. One of the categories is terrorist activities. In general, any alien who has, and there's a list of 9 different things here, and let's think a little critically about whether or not these qualify. An alien who, 1, has engaged in a terrorist activity. Now, let's think about that for a second, Mr. Galloway. What would be a terrorist activity? Would wearing terrorist paraphernalia and passing out pro-terrorist flyers to the general public as a means of propaganda, would that be terrorist activity to you?
That's a tough one. I don't know if I'd go that far.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, an alien who a consular officer, the attorney general, or the secretary of Homeland Security knows or has reasonable ground to believe is engaged in or is likely to engage after entry in any terrorist activity as defined in Clause 4 of this law, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I think this is where lawyers make their money. If the Secretary of State, or the Attorney General, Homeland Security in this case, if they have, let's say, a file on this guy that we don't know about, maybe they've investigated him for some other activities or other connections, whether they know or have reasonable ground to believe that an alien is acting in this manner when conducting terrorist activity as defined by the law, well, that's good enough, and we'll never really know about it because that'll probably be classified, right?
Yeah, but I think we're getting warmer now, right? It's like just swap out the word Hamas and replace it with Al Qaeda, right? Because more Americans are familiar with that group. If someone from Afghanistan came here and then was wearing, or waving the Al Qaeda flag on a college campus, and they were here on a student visa, especially after 9/11, how would we feel about that? Are they likely to potentially engage in terrorist activity at some point? I think we're getting warmer, right? And Hamas is a terrorist organization. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think so. Let's get to number 3. An alien who has, under circumstances indicating an intention to cause death or serious bodily harm, incited terrorist activity. Now, if you ask a Jewish student in Columbia whether or not they felt, that someone intended to commit bodily harm against them at one of these protests in the name of Hamas, do you think that would be enough to trigger calling this person an inadmissible alien? After all, this gentleman, Mahmoud Khalil, has been one of the prime organizers of all of these protests that we've seen at Columbia over a year now.
Yeah. And I mean, we're getting warmer and warmer here, right? There's plenty of videos out there circulating at these pro-Hamas protests that say, people break out into chants, death to America, death to Israel. That's enough for me. If you're not an American citizen and you're out there chanting either one of those things, you get the boot. That's it.
Okay, so you know what? I'm going to skip to the close here. There are other definitions here, but let's focus. I don't know if you can see it on the screen right now. Subsection 7 here of this. Endorses or espouses terrorist activity or persuades others to endorse or espouse terrorist activity or support a terrorist organization. I think that's pretty damn close to the mark, don't you think?
Ding, ding, ding. They all celebrated October 7th, and they refused to acknowledge it was a terrorist act. What else was that?
I mean, there you go. I think that gets us to him being an inadmissible alien. That should, I believe, make him deportable. Now, let's be clear. The attorneys for this gentleman, Mahmoud Khalil, all 19 of them, are signed on to a writ of habeas motion that was heard initially in the Southern District of New York. But in actuality, this is not a judicial proceeding. This is an immigration and naturalization proceeding. This is by the executive branch, not by the judicial branch. They don't have to go to court to make a decision about whether or not this person should be deported or not. The decision rests with the executive branch, and they are offering due process at this point to this illegal alien. At this point, that's how he's going to be classified, this inadmissible alien under the law, and then making a determination as to whether or not he is by definition, by statute, an inadmissible alien. They went to court to try to, I guess, bring him back to New York where they think they'll have more favorable decision makers. But I don't think that that's going to really do anything, because I don't think that the judiciary has the power to horn in on the administrative and regulatory procedures as established by Congress in the INA for deportation. I don't think they're going to get anywhere with this.
Yeah, I wish I would have sent. I read something earlier today, and I wish I would have sent it to you. There was it was either this case or a case very similar to this, where a court did step in and not to make a ruling, but to keep the person in the United States while this plays out, so that the courts here still have jurisdiction. Because if the executive branch deports the guy, then obviously the federal courts here would have no jurisdiction over the case anymore, right? But I agree with you. It seems like it's pretty clear cut. It's a statute passed by the legislature. If the due process is, an administrative hearing with the executive branch, that seems like a no-brainer to me. And just to say one more thing about this, Gene. The mere fact of protesting, I will actually, love to debate that with people and to think it through a little more in depth and not just give a snap reaction. But I will tell you, any person that breaks any other law that's here on a student visa, like the ones that took over a building or blocked traffic or burned stuff, like that no matter where they did that type of activity, that would be like a misdemeanor charge and subject them to deportation anyway, right? So like we need to aggressively go after those people to set the example. Also charge the American citizens who are taking over buildings, right? You can't deport them, unfortunately, but they should also catch a misdemeanor and maybe be expelled from the school, right? I would never think of doing something like that at my job or at a school. It doesn't make sense.
But here's the problem. Columbia University would not press charges against anyone for that. You don't have a complaining witness unless you can, I think that the police should do this. If one of those Jewish students who have been, I don't want to say targeted, but let's say have
intimidated
by these protests, or have been deprived of their right to attend class in a hall that has been quote unquote occupied, the police should be allowed to step in for that private citizen and be able to handle things here. But because the institution itself isn't allowing the NYPD to go onto school grounds, they're not going to be prosecuted. This is why this section of the INA is so important and vital to the Trump administration's decision-making process, because they don't need a crime in order to start the deportation proceedings if there is this national security risk as outlined in the statute. If someone is an inadmissible alien under another section of the INA, you can deport them. So long as you have that classification done, that's all there is to it. I do want to bring up this clip of my favorite senator, Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, talking about the legal framing of the Trump administration's actions here. And because he is a lawyer, he does speak artfully about this. And I want to give credit where it's due. I listened to this clip beforehand and helped formulate my opinion.
Right. The ACLU is defending Mr. Khalil. They say this is a freedom of speech case. I support freedom of speech. How else would we know who the idiots are without freedom of speech? This case is not about freedom of speech. It's about civilized behavior. It's about national security. It's about terrorism. Mr. Khalil is not an American citizen. He's here with a green card. By word and deed, at Columbia, he's shown that he supports Hamas. That's a violation of the Immigration and Naturalization Act, which says you can be deported if you support a terrorist organization. Here's the bottom line. Mr. Khalil hates America, as you said in your monologue. If you're not happy where you are, move. You're not a tree. Secretary Rubio is going to help him move. We may lose in district court, depending on the judge that we get, but we'll win this in the Supreme Court.
And that's what it comes down to. The forum shopping here is the big concern, because I can see a liberal judge in the People's Republic of New York City granting that bogus habeas motion and start gumming up the works. But then it'll just go up the ladder, and eventually the Supreme Court will get this matter, and the Supreme Court, in my opinion, will say that the federal government has exclusive jurisdiction over immigration and naturalization, which has been imbued in the executive branch by statute. And that's all there is to it.
Yeah. And I mean, this administration really came to play, because not only are they taking the immigration angle and the legal angle, they are also cutting federal funding to schools that are doing what you said. If they refuse to protect students, in this case, it's Jewish students, but tomorrow it could be Catholic students or anyone else, Black students, right? If you refuse to protect those students' civil rights and their ability to get an education that they're paying for, because you don't want to press charges with the local police when they take over a building, then you lose your federal funding. And we'll see you in court for that one too, I guess.
There's another clip that's out there. This was put out by Scott Jennings from CNN, the guy that you always ask, why the hell are you on this network?
I don't know why he still does it.
And I think this shows why he is there, because I think he likes being in the trenches with Democrats and trying to expose who they are. I don't want you to necessarily listen to Scott Jennings and what he says, although he makes sense, just like the other Republicans we heard from just now. But listen to the thinking of everyone trying to counter Scott Jennings' arguments here and what they're saying.
An alien, he can be deported under U.S. law for if the Secretary of State has any reasonable ground to believe he would have a potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequence. And you mentioned the student organization. The student organization put out. Let me finish.
But before you move on, because I think that's a really important point, right? That's the statute that they're using.
Yeah.
Have you seen any evidence to suggest that there is actually a serious reason to believe that this student is going to be a threat to national security?
I mean, I've certainly watched the abomination that's gone on at Columbia and Barnard and other places, and I will just tell you,
to national security.
and I'll just tell you that
I'm not going to let you move on, because this is the
I'll tell you why it's a threat to national security if you let me answer you.
Well, Scott,
do you want me to answer you or not?
Okay.
His organization says we are dedicated fighting for the total eradication of Western civilization.
Okay.
He's not a citizen. He doesn't need to be here.
I don't want to. You just described him.
So they're minimizing, to start out with, the threat to national security that this illegal alien, green card holder, whatever his status may be, this gentleman espousing and endorsing terrorist activity. They're minimizing the national security effects of influencing students to support terrorism.
Yeah. And how old is this woman? Does she not remember that the many, if not all, of the 9/11 hijackers were here on student visas, right? They were learning how to fly planes and doing other things in this country. And I wish we would have had a more aggressive administration back then to look into their backgrounds if they're coming from certain places and root them out and kick them out of here.
You know, that's a really good point that really hasn't been discussed anywhere in the media. Say it one more time.
I'm the media now.
You are the media. Look at me. I am the media now. Say it one more time for the people in the back. The people who perpetrated September 11, many of them were here on student visas. There it is.
Al-Qaeda supporters, right?
Or outright members.
I don't know if Al-Qaeda or Hamas have like membership cards where you sign an application to join, or if you just pledge your allegiance.
Yeah, they got the secret decoder ring.
Right?
That's the only way you can know.
Like, I don't think there's card-carrying members. Like, I think if you just say you're in Hamas, you're in Hamas pretty much. Like, that's it, right? The guy's pledging allegiance to Hamas, this terrorist organization. See ya.
Well, unless they're the people out there who are, LGBTQ espousing that they're supporting Hamas, I don't know if Hamas would claim them. Just saying.
A lot of them are running around saying that too, though. Those morons.
Indeed. I'm going to continue on with the clip because there are more arguments to come at Scott Jennings here we can address.
Having viewpoints that you disagree with. Again, is that enough to have someone lose their rights in this country?
He has viewpoints that, in my opinion, jeopardize the security of the United
How?
States.
But how?
He is obviously a radical who is here to foment.
No, he's not a radical at all. He's
violence
anti-American.
against the United States government.
He wants to
Has
destroy
committed
Western
violence
civilization.
against the United States government?
You're saying
Scott?
eradicate
Has he
Western
committed-
civilization doesn't make you a radical?
Has he acted in any way that is
I think he
violence
has.
against the
I
United
think
States
these-
government?
I
as
think
you-
Yes, he has espoused and endorsed the activities of known terrorists. Isn't that enough?
But Gene, don't you love this? CNN is being forced, because they're idiots, to defend radical Islamic extremism. Like that's their position in life now.
It's the 80-20 you were just talking about a few minutes ago.
Yes. There's not many people who will be defending Mahmoud Khalil Yabba-Dabba-Doo. Like, I don't think there's that many people that would defend this guy and want to keep him here.
Oh, we're getting canceled, but I don't care anymore. So let's keep going.
I think these protests and the violence they have fomented and the intimidation and fear against the Jewish kids on these campuses is absolutely an act of
But you're-
insurrection against the United
Okay,
States.
all
I don't think
Free
any-
American speech, Scott. That's enough.
Look,
Yes.
Look, what they have engaged in is a clear threat to the United States. And if you want the United States to be overrun by radicals the way Europe has,
What is
be
the-
my guest.
what
But
is-
I think the president needs to
but
stand up for
Scott-
the integrity of the
Scott,
United
what
States.
is the threat?
The threat of our
The
country
threat
being
is a
and our college
is-
campuses being overrun by radicals who are trying to run Jewish kids off of campuses
So-
and
They're not
anybody
trying to
else who
run Jewish
disagrees.
kids
Yes,
off
they
of-
are.
Oh, yes,
In
they are.
UCLA.
No,
In
they're not.
UCLA.
First of all,
they wouldn't even
they
let
were-
them go to class.
First of all, they were
Columbia is an abomination.
First of all, there were violent counter protests at UCLA that were done by Jewish organizations.
No, both sides.
Oh,
This
my God.
anti-Semitism
Well,
is a scourge on
oh
this
my
country. Do
gosh.
not.
We're both sizing now, Galloway. Well, those Jewish students are countering the violence coming towards them. They're not just letting it happen to them. Are
It
you
doesn't
freaking
even-
kidding me here?
Like, the premise of her argument is absurd. She keeps like throwing out free speech. You don't have full rights and privileges if you are not a citizen in this country. You are a guest on a student visa. Like, you don't get the Second Amendment, right? So your First Amendment rights are somewhat curtailed. You know, an American citizen can run around with a Hamas flag outside and nothing's going to happen to them. They don't have to meet the same requirements as a student visa holder. So the whole argument is flawed. Now, I will say, a black guy with a cowboy hat, I do want to hear what he has to say normally, but I think he's wrong from what I've heard so far.
So far, I'm not with him as well. By the way, guys, if you're liking what you're hearing in this video, please subscribe to the channel, whether you're watching, whether it be on YouTube, on Rumble, follow us on X. Let them know at KLRN Radio on X that you like us there as well. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, spread the word. We'll be doing some more grifting later on, but back to the video now.
Absolutely.
Is that it is not clear that this particular student has engaged in the specific actions that he was talking about. And you've shown me no evidence of that either.
Okay, well, guess what? He is not a citizen. If he were a citizen, I might feel differently. He's a guest in this country.
Okay.
It's my
So
view,
in other
and
words,
it's the
you
Trump
don't have
administration.
proof, but it doesn't matter.
No,
See, here's the thing, Abby Phillip from CNN. Scott Jennings, maybe you're a straw man here, but you are ignoring the actual law. You don't need to have public proof of anything. If the government knows or has reason to believe that this person is engaging in certain terrorist activities, you're out. That's all you do. She's trying to treat this like a judicial standard when it's not that at all. Ross, you know that I helped sponsor a friend of ours who is not from America to come here to live here as a permanent resident and raise a family, start his business and whatnot here. One of the conditions of that is when I sponsor that person, that if this person gets in trouble, it could come back around to me for being the sponsor of that person. If there is any damage done or if there's anything punitive in nature, it could come back around to me. Abby Phillip is trying to equate illegal alien or resident with a green card or student status or whatever it may be to being a full-fledged American citizen, and it just doesn't work that way.
Of course, and the proof is there. I don't know why he stumbled on this. What proof do you need? This is a person that is a guest here that is expressing support and organizing others to support an organization deemed to be a terrorist organization by our country. That's all. That's the proof, right? I don't need to prove that the guy's building a bomb in his backyard, right? I don't need that proof. He's just expressing support for a terrorist organization, and he's here as a guest. It's time to go. That would be this. I would feel the same way if it was Al Qaeda. I would feel the same way if it was a Nazi, right? You're here as a guest, and you're supporting a terrorist organization and convincing others to do the same. You got to go.
Absolutely. So we are at halftime here on the show. We can continue talking about this after the break here, but just want to say thanks to everybody for watching Behind Enemy Lines. I got to remember the name of the show every now and then because we got so many irons in the fire here on the Buffoon of the Week channel. I want to thank you guys for tuning into the show. And of course, you can find us on YouTube, on Rumble, on X, all these great platforms that are carrying the show. And while you're checking us out here, there are so many other ways you can support the channel. Like, for instance, checking out our website, buffoonoftheweek.com. It's got some great stuff there, a lot of great articles that supplement all the videos that we do here on the channel. You can check us out at this big and beautiful website here, buffoonoftheweek.com. Where's the website banner? There it is right there. You can check out the articles we do there. We do monthly quizzes, and you can pick up the book, and you can also pick up some merch from us at shop.buffoonoftheweek.com. We have a bunch of Behind Enemy Lines merch that you can pick up there. It's a lot of great stuff, from mugs to apparel to posters to stickers. A lot of good stuff you can pick up at shop.buffoonoftheweek.com. Ross, I'm going to be sending you probably that Behind Enemy Lines overall tee with the barbed wire on it. I'm gonna make that like the official shirt of the show here.
Can you go back to that last screen you just showed?
The site itself?
With James Comer.
Oh yeah, we're gonna be talking about that in a little bit. That's the main story right now.
Why is he against Steve Harvey? Who is that?
You know, someone made a deep cut. I gotta pull this up now. Because it was such a funny comment that was left on the video. I have to find it now. It's a deep pull from an old TV show. I don't know if you've watched it, but let me see if I can find it here while I'm vamping here. Do you remember the show Spencer for Hire?
I do remember it.
Apparently and I don't remember it as well because you're older than me, but apparently there was a character on the show. I have to find it now in the comments. I'm going through my phone because it's much quicker. God,
that's one ugly woman.
We can talk about that in a second here. Hang on, let me see. I can find the comment here. Oh, I responded to it. I said it was a real deep pull. Here it is. She looks like Hawk from Spencer for Hire. He was his right-hand man.
Oh man, I'm sorry I made you go back to that, but
No. Are you kidding? It gives me an opportunity to go to the site itself, and we can talk about this for a little bit. Give me time to upload the story. Here is the video we did on this. Presley and Comer get into fight over nothing. I truly believe this. Maybe we can have a little fight over this. A recent clash between Representative Ayanna Presley and Rep. James Comer in the House Oversight Committee underscores how tensions are hitting new heights in Washington, D.C. And we take a look at the chaos that was going on in the committee. Would you like me to pull up the video itself of the interaction, or you want me to run through this?
I think you could run through it. I think most people have seen this clip, I hope.
Well, you know what? For those who haven't, I can just find the clip really quickly here. It's a lot easier for me to do. But so basically, there was a moment in the House Oversight Committee. By the way, they were talking about sanctuary cities, and it goes into this whole discussion of illegal aliens as well here. And the discussion was about a unanimous consent request to enter documents into the record for the committee. A very innocuous thing. Let's break this down as we did on Monday in the video, and I'll give you my opinion on this whole thing. And Ross, you can tell me as well what you think.
Recognizes
Mr. Chairman, I have unanimous consent request. Mr. Chairman, I have unanimous consent request.
Proceed.
I'd like to seek unanimous consent to enter into the record this article, and I'll do this as a survivor of sexual violence myself. This is from Courts, March 2018.
Without objection, so ordered.
Data from Texas shows that U.S.-born
Without objection, so ordered. We've put it in the record.
Cut and dry. There, you got what you want. Congratulations. The article is in the record. But she wants to make a speech about it, and she hasn't been recognized by the chair to have her time on committee. She's just been recognized for the purpose of entering this document into the record. But she now goes a step further. Watch this.
I haven't entered it.
You have what?
Mr. Chair, can I have several articles. I need to enter them. Let me just go ahead with what the articles are. What they speak to.
What's the next article?
Let me proceed. Data from Texas shows that U.S.-born Americans...
Now, Comer recognized her for the purpose of entering a second article into the record. And what does she do? She completely disregards Comer's directive and goes back into the speech that she wants to give here. And that's not what she was recognized for. It's kind of nuts.
And if I could just give a little insight here for the people that don't really know what's going on. So the whole point of them entering articles into the record is these are committee hearings, right? And each member gets probably 5 minutes to ask questions or pontificate or whatever they want to do with their time. And it goes back and forth. The Republicans get it 5 minutes and someone in the Democrat side gets 5 minutes. It goes back and forth. So after they exhaust their time, and Comer hints at this, they like to play these games where they'll enter articles for the record, right? And without any objection, unanimous consent, it usually gets admitted with no problem. And all they're supposed to do is say that they want to admit it into the record and give the headline of what they're submitting, so that it's germane to the topic that they're speaking about, and it gets submitted. But what they like to do, and what she tried to do, was not only start reading little factoids out of the article, but then insert her own commentary as a survivor of sexual assault, which was actually delicious because the hearing, as a survivor of sexual assault, she's arguing that men should be in women's sports, which was like absurd to begin with, right? So those don't even match. And just real quick, the point of these committee hearings, the reason why they even allow you to submit things for the record is because the committee is only a handful of congressmen. Right? Theoretically, this committee is having a hearing, and before they have a vote with the whole House, the rest of the House members can go back and review the record that would include these stupid articles that she's submitting, as well as testimony and pontification, so that they can be informed by the committee's hearing before they cast a vote. That's the whole point of all of this, and she's just trying to skirt the system and get extra time, more than her 5 minutes that were allotted.
Right, and of course, our friend Christie bringing the petty, which I absolutely love. But it all breaks down after Comer shows that he has a set of balls.
More rape and murder than immigrants.
Listen, this trend of you all trying to get thrown out of committee so you can get on MSNBC is going to end. We're not going to put up with it.
This is my procedural right as a member of this committee.
You can go with Mr. Frost and Mr. Green.
I'm reclaiming my time.
That's what you want. No. Ms. Presley, I have been very accommodating to you. Mr. Subrignon,
and I take particular umbrage as a survivor of sexual violence. I will enter into the record. This is my right. Thank you.
No. It is Mr. Subrignon.
Mr. Chair.
No, you know the process of unanimous consent. You are not recognized.
I have several articles to enter into the record.
By the way, I absolutely hate that we have committee chairs who don't have the rules of the committee at least at their fingertips, that they have to have staff point to the script in front of them and what they have to say for the record. I can't stand that. If you're going to be a committee chair, know the fucking rules.
I mean, Gene, I can't stand that either. But to be honest, first of all, like we keep saying, this is not helping the Democrats, right? She's hysterical. It doesn't make any sense what she's trying to do. But you just don't I used to have this saying in a lot of the jobs that I've had where I was in a management or supervisory position. I'd be like, when you reprimand an employee, a lot of times they're like, well, I didn't see that written anywhere that I couldn't do that. And it's like, dude, did I need to write a rule or put in your tasking standards that you can't take a piss in the corner of my office? Certain things are just common sense. What she's trying to do right now clearly you can't do this. I don't know if it's fair to say that he has to have every, Robert's Rules of Order ready at hand, because she shouldn't be acting this way, right? This is unbecoming of a member of the House of Representatives.
Okay, so I've been getting a little bit of flack for saying online that, yes, Ayanna Pressley is wrong. I agree with everything that you just said, pal. But Comer also had a bit of an itchy trigger finger, in my opinion, here, given the disruption that happened with Al Green and Jasmine Crockett and that other gentleman from Florida. I forget who it is. And I think that he may have been a little too eager in sort of chomping this at the bit here, just really just nipping it in the bud. And I think he came off as a little over eager. What do you think?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if that was Matt Gaetz, I think he would have got the same treatment. You know what I mean? I know what the left wants for people to see, right? It's a white Republican male going after a bald-headed black female.
Oh, wait. A white Southern Republican male.
Yeah, and I know that's what they wanted to get out of this, but I do think America turned the corner, right? Like, you don't get to act that way no matter who you are, right? A white man, I guarantee you, would have been put in his place too if he tried that.
Good Lord. Everybody's got jokes in the comments. I got to take umbrage with the Deep Space Nine joke here. Gender neutral Benjamin Sisko, I'm sorry. Benjamin Sisko did not deserve to catch a stray, Mr. Rick Robinson. That was uncalled for. But this wasn't the only disruption, as we know. We saw the disruptions during the speech with Donald Trump last week. We saw this now. There was another disruption that has been making the news rounds recently, and this happened in I don't even know what subcommittee this was in. I had it memorized, but it's like I don't remember it now. Involving Congressman Keith Self of Texas. And apparently this is really roiling a lot of Democrats based upon what happened here. On the committee is, I believe, the I forget the person's name, the first transgender member of Congress from Delaware. And this happened with Congressman Self of Texas.
As the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
That's an interesting little tete-a-tete right there. But given this administration's executive order declaring two genders, I guess Congressman Self, who, by the way, I believe is also an Army veteran, he went this direction. What do you think about it? Is this something that Congressman Galloway would have done?
No, I don't think I would have done that, to be honest. So the executive order from the Trump administration would have no bearing on Congress. With separation of powers, they get to do whatever the hell they want to do anyway. I will say this, right? Like, I don't think that biological men, no matter how feminine they may look, should be in women's spaces. Like, I just don't think that should be a thing. But I will give credit where credit is due. This person, McBride, in her current form, like, I don't know what she was like 10 years ago when she was at lower offices, but she's taken a lot of this heat in stride, right? Like, I don't think that was over the top. The gentleman from Texas threw a dig at her, and she threw one back, didn't get hysterical. That's all. I think that was fair. I think that was okay.
Yeah, well, the ranking member of the committee took umbrage with this whole thing. If it would have been this little interplay, it would have been one thing. But of course, Democrats have to take things a little too far. By the way, our friend Christy letting us know that in the executive branch, all pronouns have to be removed from email signatures apparently by 5 p.m. today. I don't know if that happened or not, but we'll keep an eye on that. But listen to the ranking member. I believe his name is, this is Congressman Keating, responding to Congressman Self.
Ranking Member Keating, also wonderful.
Mr. Chairman, could you repeat your introduction again, please?
Yes, it's a We have set the standard on the floor of the House, and I'm simply.
What is that standard, Mr. Chairman? Would you
standard-
repeat what you just said when you introduced a duly elected representative from the United States of America? Please.
I will. The representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Mr. Chairman, you are out of order. Mr. Chairman, have you no decency? I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent.
We will continue this
You
hearing.
will not continue it with me unless you introduce a duly elected representative the right way.
This hearing is adjourned.
I take your bluff, sir, and I call it. Listen, you can say what you want about Keith Self, but man's got balls. I set you up for an obvious joke there, though, pal.
I don't know, man. Like, why can't they just call them representative?
I think so.
I don't get it.
But you know what it is? There's a tradition in the House, the gentleman from California, the gentle lady from Minnesota.
I get the tradition part of it. But so Jordan Peterson, he's a Canadian, great guy, like modern day philosopher, has a lot of good stuff online. You know, he talks about this in Canada a lot, where Canadian law they passed a while back forced people to use the preferred pronouns of other people. And in Canada, they obviously don't have a First Amendment, right? So like his argument was, it's one thing for someone to claim to be their something. It's another thing to force someone else to exercise speech that they don't agree with, right? So like, I don't know. Was it right to call her Mr. Just call her representative?
You know what?
I don't know. Like,
I'm sort of with you on this as far as, you know, common courtesy and things like that. If you want to be called something, I don't have to play into your delulu, but I can certainly choose to A, avoid drama, and B, you know, we're here working together. I have to establish a relationship with you in some way in order to possibly horse trade and get things passed that I need to get passed. So that could be one way of looking at it. The other way to look at it is to be a hardliner like this and to do this. I'm not here to value judge Keith Self. I wouldn't have handled it this way. And I hear what you're saying there as well. But he's entitled to handle things this way if that's the route he wants to go.
Yeah, I mean, I try to summarize what Jordan Peterson says. Like, you can't force someone to say things. Like, that's violating their freedom of speech, right, and freedom of expression.
Right.
But like, I don't know. To me, whatever that hearing was about, obviously just got side railed. It wasn't that important.
Yeah.
For this point, like, this point really wasn't that important to me. Whatever they were trying to get across.
Right. Well, Keith Self did an interview with Michael Knowles, and this is what he had to say in reaction to it.
Matter. What do you say to your Democrat colleague there, the ranking member, who starts raising his voice, threatens to walk out of the proceeding because you referred to a man as Mr.? What do you say to those people who say it is disrespectful for you to call a man who thinks he's a woman Mr.?
Well, Michael, I'm a retired Green Beret. I'm not even sure what all the fuss is about. I mean, he is allowed to live his life. In fact, I spent 25 years on active duty defending his right to live his life as he chooses. But I don't have to participate in his fantasy. So I am under no obligation to participate in something that he chooses to portray himself as.
He's a Green Beret, pal, and he's like, you can't make me.
Well, this is what I mean. I'm not I don't see legally how he's wrong, or technically even how he's wrong.
Yeah. I
just probably wouldn't have done that, right? I would have just, I don't care what the tradition is by Mr. or Miss, I would have just said representative and then leave it at that.
I tend to agree. I think the business of the people is a little more important than you getting your backup about the presentation of a colleague of yours.
Yeah.
And if it's going to be that much of a sticking point to you, then maybe you shouldn't chair a committee, because you're going to more often than not derail the business of the people. And if you're there to represent people, great. But
and just one more thing about McBride, Representative McBride, Representative Nancy Mace, who is like a rising star in the Republican Party for some reason, I don't even like her. She made about a month's worth of coverage going after this person to not let them use the restroom at the Capitol, the females' restroom. Now, I agree technically, right? However, where was Nancy Mace like a few months before that when that issue was going across the whole country, right? When it came home to roost at the Capitol, she had a problem with it. Nowhere to be found prior to that. So, I don't know.
Well, when you have the full backing of the executive branch, you kind of get a little more emboldened to do things like that. This whole thing with, just to tie it together with Presley and Comer and now this interaction, these are all tempests in teapots. These are all little things turning into bigger things. I'm very concerned here, pal, that we're not going to get things done because Democrats now see a strategy that they can go after these little moments and derail and delay agendas just by nitpicking and antagonizing these little moments that are normally a matter of custom, but are now becoming quite contentious.
Well, yeah, that's their MO for everything. Though they're using that tactic with these stupid little issues here, but their delay is what they're going to do with everything going forward, right? Let's look at President Trump's cabinet picks. All of them had to go the max time. I think it was 30 hours between getting out of committee and getting to a floor vote for no reason at all, right? Like there was no way the outcome was going to be changed, but it's a Senate rule that normally can be waived with unanimous consent, but the Democrats would not give it, or 60 vote threshold, whatever it was to bypass that, they would never give it, right? Because they just knew that, if you give someone an extra month in as the head of a department, they could do a lot more damage over the next couple of years, where if we just keep delaying and then the House can't vote on a budget and maybe the government will get shut down and the Republicans will get blamed and then the Senate gets sidetracked and they can't confirm federal judges. Like it's just all delays. They're trying to just, stay in the race for the next 4 years till Trump is gone and slow him down as much as possible.
And if that does happen, we're going to see this agenda gets mired in procedure and customs and things like this, and a lot less is going to actually get done here. And that's a big deal to me.
Yeah, bro, but that's why I keep saying the Republicans need to grow a pair and get rid of the filibuster. The Democrats are going to do that one day when it benefits them. Chuck Schumer threatened to do that very thing if they had all three, right? And he didn't do it because the House flipped to the Republicans. When, God forbid, they ever control both houses of Congress and the presidency, they will eliminate the filibuster. We need to beat them to that punch. They'll eliminate it. They'll expand the Supreme Court. They'll make Washington, D.C. a state. They'll make Puerto Rico a state. They'll have permanent majorities in the Senate that we can never get rid of, and they'll expand the Supreme Court and appoint a bunch of judges to dilute the conservative majority that's currently there. Call their bluff. We need to do it and not get mired down. That's it. Ram it down their fucking throats. The agenda, right. That is.
Yeah, there's a lot of jokes right there, but we're going to leave those alone, and we're going to proceed over to our final thoughts. Man, that hour went fast, didn't it? This hour went crazy quick. There's so much to talk about here. I'm going to let you go first with the final thoughts because I have a little show and tell to do.
Yep. So for you guys listening out there, don't get fooled. Chuck Schumer is already running around, and so is Hakeem Jeffries, the Democrat leader in the Senate, in the House, minority leader.
See what I'm pointing at right there? Schumer
threatening to shut down the government, right? And they're going to blame Republicans. The Democrats are masters at this, and they got the media in their back pocket. No matter who's in charge, and for whatever reason the government might get shut down, which it never really gets shut down, but that's a different story for a different day. No matter who's in charge, no matter what the cause is, the Democrats always spin it that it is the Republicans' fault. In this case, the Republicans have majorities in both houses and they have the White House. But in the Senate, you have a crazy rule that requires 60 votes to pass most legislation. The Republicans have 53 votes, 54 if you count J.D. Vance, the vice president, in the event of a tie, right? So without some Democrat votes, normal laws that don't have to do with funding strictly financial matters can't pass without some Democrat support. So the Chuck Schumer is going to delay. He's going to let spending lapse, especially since the first couple of bills out of the chute are going to fund border enforcement and some other Trump priorities. And he's going to try to attempt to shut down parts of the government very soon and blame the Republicans. Don't get fooled by it. And by the way, again, call their bluff. If you're not going to eliminate the filibuster, fuck them. Shut the government down, right? Doge is trying to cut government spending. What better way to cut government spending than to shut the motherfucker down for a few weeks? And that's that.
All right. My final thought, I'm going to touch on something that we discussed, what was it, last week? Here in the People's Republic of New York with Kathy Hochul and her moves against correction officers. Well, for those of you who have been keeping score, Kathy Hochul basically fired thousands of correction officers who went out on this quote-unquote illegal strike because they were working, 36-hour shifts and things like that. But this, as it turns out, is pretty emblematic of the new Kathy Hochul. And I wrote this piece for Newsmax, pal, that I want to share with you. It came out today, and here it is. Dems stay silent as Hochul neutralizes rivals. It wasn't just these people in the Department of Corrections. It's everywhere. Kathy Hochul, when she first ran with Andrew Cuomo as lieutenant governor, no one knew who the hell she was. It was the old adage of, if you are in New York and you put a Democrat label on a ham sandwich, the ham sandwich starts out with 40% of the vote. That was Kathy Hochul. But this is proof that if you leave a ham sandwich out too long, it will give you stomach problems. Kathy Hochul is not only going after the corrections officers, as we talk about in the story here, but she's going after Eric Adams. But it's not just Eric Adams; it's a power grab back from for the governor from the home rule of New York City. Because Eric Adams has probably made a deal with the federal government, she is now punishing him, not ousting him, which is her right to do, but punishing him with these guardrails because, how magnanimous of her to just leave him in office under her intense scrutiny, basically getting back at him for all of the times that he made Hochul look bad during the migrant crisis in the past couple of years. But the most intriguing thing, and I want to read this from the story itself, Hochul has gone into full purge mode in her own administration. Her own lieutenant governor, Antonio Delgado, has decided that he wasn't going to run for lieutenant governor on the Hochul ticket again. So what does Hochul do? She purges him from the government. She took away his offices on the same floor as her in the state capitol. She gave away offices in New York City and in upstate New York as well, confiscated his state-issued devices, and reassigned his staff, all while wishing him well in his future endeavors. Because Delgado is most likely going to be giving a primary challenge against Hochul. So Hochul has shown zero hesitation in weaponizing the government against her perceived political threat. And if this sounds familiar to you guys, it probably should, because that's exactly what we just went through with the Biden administration against President Trump. The same crowd of Democrats in the People's Republic of New York would be screaming if Donald Trump were to do 1% of what Kathy Hochul is trying to do now. There is no pearl clutching going on. There are no calls hysterically saying that there's a threat to democracy. Kathy Hochul is basically being allowed to do this, all while positioning herself as the anti-Trump governor as well, fighting against his administration, fighting for illegals, those 80-20 issues that we've been talking about. The hypocrisy is absolutely striking, but completely expected from this growingly irredeemable governor, pal.
She's a fascist, and she's doing it to people of color. That's it.
Not only doing it to people of color, but doing it to fellow Democrats who ain't saying boo about it. Completely crazy. But par for the course for us. Listen, I want to thank everybody for tuning into the show, especially, and check this out, Galloway, the over 1,000 people that were watching on KLRN during the first part of the hour. Thank you guys for tuning in. Shout out to KLRN. You'll see this on replay. Shout out to our audience as well that we brought in on YouTube, on Rumble, on X, wherever you're watching. Thank you so much for all that you do to help grow the channel, either by liking, sharing, subscribing, buying merch, checking out the website, all the crazy things that we're doing here. And I hope you keep on doing it as we progress through this year. But for now, it's time to shut things down, my brother.
Please shut it down. Please shut it down.
We're going to shut this down so we can all get about our business. And thank you again, everyone, for tuning in, for hanging out with us, for giving us your opinions in the chat. Shout out to the chat for all that you do. But for right now, time to shut this motherfucker down, and we're going to play ourselves out with our anthem. Good night, folks. See you next week.
We're not allowed, not without electoral.
Go fuck yourself. Is that clear?
Teeth, don't let them have sway. Conservative battalions walking them out, marching through the streets while the buffoons all shout. Move in the shadows, flag on my chest, repping my clan, putting faith to the test. Cause left lays loose behind enemy lines, fighting for the truth, feels like wartime. Don't back down, keep it rugged and raw, cool in the chaos, but loud in the war. But loud in the war. Thunder, arm in advance, march to the anthem, this is our chance. If I ever stare with a smirk in a gaze, holding down the fort in this Democrat cage. Whistles in the dark, strategies unfold, allies unseen, but bonds remain bold. Commitment to the cause in the heart of the storms, in the name of freedom we're breaking the norm. Cause let's stay blue behind enemy lines, fighting for the truth, feels like wartime. Don't back down, keep it rugged and raw. Cool in the chaos, but loud in this war. But loud in this war. Let's make moves behind enemy lines, fighting for the truth, feels like wartime. Don't back down, keep it rugged and raw. Cool in the chaos, but loud in